Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Startup Leaders Club today. And we have a panel discussion devoted to the business model pivots in the era of pandemic series 7 today. Disrupting industries, creating new business models and finding new opportunities in crisis. And today we have representatives from different parts of the world, different industries and backgrounds. And we'll start with a brief introduction of each of our panelists today. Ilaria, could you please join and start with a brief intro?
Hello, everybody. My name is Ilaria Cavalleri. I'm Italian, and I'm the founder of scaleupitaly.com, which is a blog talking about the Italian ecosystem. I am also manager at Cenciarini & Company, which is an investment banking boutique specialized in early stage investments.
Thank you, Ilaria. And Stan?
Hi, I'm Stan Momlix. I'm operating partner for Ramp Catalyst. We are a corporate investment fund that's really specializing in corporate spinouts and in technology roll-ups, so industry-specific roll-ups, based out here in Seattle, Washington.
Thank you, Stan. And Noah?
Hi, everyone. This is Noah, joining from China, Hangzhou. And before I co-founded Top Network, I was an investor for over 12 years, and I was educated in the US at Yale. And because most of our friends are quite passionate about the future of blockchain, so we founded a public blockchain company and based in Silicon Valley, but we have a very large office in Hangzhou with 300 people.
Thank you, Noah. And Patrice?
Hello, everyone. I'm usually in Hong Kong and Singapore, in France here, as I said before, adapting to circumstances. I'm an author and researcher. First, published a book with Springer on blockchain technology and entertainment last year. I founded and I'm the CEO of Lumiere project, which is looking at tokenization in the entertainment industry. And we tokenized our first film last year that went on to be nominated for an Oscar by Algeria and won 2 César prizes 3 months ago now.
Thank you, Patrice. And Cameron?
Hi, this is Cameron, and I'm participating from Turkey. And on the other hand, I'm a computer scientist, who has about 15 years experiences in telecommunication, finance, and e-government solutions. And for about 5 years, I have been running my own startups, which is in connectivity, in connected car space and electric car space. And I'm the founder of Asgard Electric Cars to produce affordable and easy to park and easy to charge electric cars that also generates blockchain-based cryptocurrencies. So that's all we have to do now. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Cameron. And Joren?
Hi, I'm Joren de Wachter, based in Brussels. And I'm COO of Caesar.io, which is a business that allows ticket buyers going to events to pick their seats when they buy a ticket. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. My name is Nadya Nesterova. I'm an independent director of the board of the National Alternative Investment Management Association and advisor to a number of GPs in private equity, venture capital, and real estate. And my co-moderator today, Giampaolo Parigi. Giampaolo, could you also introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Giampaolo Parigi here. I'm a venture capitalist with a keen interest in technology, particularly in up to Series B rounds. And I'm very happy to be on the panel today. I'm also the chairman of a single family office. And I have different interests in the financial industry around the globe. If Nadya, you allow me, I would like to start with a question for Noha. Noha, you came to the US for academic reasons to study, and you fell in love with a certain atmosphere that you found, and you decided that you wanted to become also an entrepreneur, and you've been successfully raising capital. Can you give us and our audience an idea of what's the feeling like to come from a different country? I mean, you were coming from China in this case, and you raised in the US. I mean, what are the experiences you've gone through, and what can it teach us to can you teach to others from this experience?
Okay, so thank you so much for your questions. And I'm not just interested in maybe spending my time in the US. I also spend some time in Europe and also in Singapore as well. And from my point of view, and different culture has something in common. That is, as long as you have maybe good team and good product, and a lot of investors will find you. And no matter where you are in the world. And I was in the northeast part of the US, and Yale was not a maybe very famous school for entrepreneurship instead of Stanford or UC Berkeley. But as long as you are pursuing what you are really loving, and you will find some people in common, and you can set up your team, and in maybe in Silicon Valley, and also in China, or even in Europe. At the very beginning, I have planned for my companies for maybe over a year, but I'm still lacking of a very good founding team. So I keep looking, and then eventually I find my team in Silicon Valley. And fortunately, China has also have a very big market. For example, I'm currently in Hangzhou. We have set up my office in China, and Alibaba also set up its office in China as well. So it's very easy for us and to find some for some engineers in this city, and there's some, and we can find some common grounds in communicating with them, and they are easy to understand what we really want, and to build a global-wise blockchain company. And also because I spend time in different countries, and it makes me to understand the different needs of different people from different corners of the world, so we can diversify our products and to accommodate the different needs of the different people. And also, even I have graduated from the university, but I can still reach different resources, and even to be a coach and for freshmen or sophomore in the universities. And it's kind of an echo between me and my alma mater. And so that a lot of professors or investors can have access to my company through university or through some VCs in China and in Silicon Valley. So if I combine all the factors together, and I think as long as you have passion, and you are pursuing the right direction, and every resources will come to you naturally. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Noam. Nadya, do you want to ask a question to anyone? Otherwise, I have a question for Ilaria.
Okay, go ahead.
Ilaria, I mean, you're a business angel, and you're based in Milan, which is a hotbed of entrepreneurialism, and there's so many companies. What do you see now in the wake of COVID-19? How's the situation in the industrial district, which is the powerhouse of northern Italy?
Yes, I see interesting trends. I mean, so if we talk about startups, I see companies and startuppers that reacting and are still reacting in different ways, depending on the industry, of course, of the business. So we have companies that still struggle nowadays because they're operating in the travel industry, in the tourism industry, and because we are partially under lockdown, people are struggling to come to Italy, they're still in difficulties. There are other startups maybe running by seasoned entrepreneurs that were able actually to pivot it. And so the way they pivoted, it was a way to, studying and understanding what the customers was going. So by following the customers and following the needs of the customers, they try to offer new solutions, to open new revenue lines, to open new business lines, actually. And it was quite interesting. I can mention an example. I don't know if you heard about Enrico Pandian, who is the founder of Supermercato 24. That is online grocery services for people. It's one of the first scale-up that we had here in Italy. Now he's the CEO of Fresco Frigo, which is a company that created automated fridges for to put in buildings. Before the pandemic, they were offering these fridges into workplaces, so office buildings. They understood that people were working from home, and so they started to talk to residential building administrators in order to offer the product in the kind of building. So they follow the customers, and that was quite interesting. So this is the trend from the startup point of view. From large corporation point of view, I saw companies that experience a very high acceleration on the digital pace and the digital world, and on the online channels as well, online sales channels. And so there are companies, large corporations, that they got the annual budget just in 1 month. And so they understood that they needed help somehow to make all the processes efficient. And so they're partnering now with startups. They're acquiring actually startups. So that's an interesting trend that I'm seeing now in Italy.
Thank you, Ilaria. Nadya?
Yes, we have a new participant now joining us. Jihan, would you please introduce yourself and the company? You are muted. Can you unmute yourself first?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Jihan Fuad Atkin, founder and CEO of CNEX. We are building a pay-per-viewer streaming ecosystem for all ticketed entertainment.
Thank you. So do you have any challenges, opportunities you observe in your segment in the current situation you would like to share with us?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, with the COVID-19 pandemic, as you guys all know, the movie theaters, the concerts, all the live entertainment has been shuttered. There's nothing going on. Now they're starting to slowly open up. So this was one of the biggest, moments for us, because it really shed light on what we're doing here at CNEX. So with all these different entertainment options closed and the industry losing billions of dollars, our product actually brings that experience to the home. So it's called contactless, like theater exhibition. We can stream movies, concerts, musicals, all these ticketed entertainment directly to the home, and sell tickets per viewer to replicate that experience and increase the exposure that these content creators can get. So with the pandemic, before the pandemic, everybody would ask us, why is this so different from Netflix? And now with the pandemic, everyone actually has experienced this, loss in the entertainment, and there's this demand. So when we explain it now, everyone actually gets it right away. So I think being able to understand your audience, being able to understand the circumstances that you're in, and being able to tailor your message accordingly has been very helpful for us.
Thank you. And Stan, you've been with us for several conversations already. So what have been your observations? Any changes from your latest communication with us? Maybe something of a new stage in your business?
Yeah, well, I think that, it's interesting. My perspective is, 30 years in the tech industry, we've gotten, we come at things kind of with a frame of mind, which is really kind of in the early adopter of technology. And teams I work with, we've been using Skype and Slack and, Hangouts and these tools for years. We've had teams, I've managed teams that were on 3 continents and used, video and the other kind of sharing tools kind of is a second nature, especially working with smaller businesses, but anybody who's worked in a really large enterprise has done this. But what you see differently is kind of, and you see this a lot in technology, is it's the adoption. Once it kind of jumps that chasm, if you will, and everybody starts to use it. My wife is using Zoom to do yoga classes. People are using it to, educate kids. They've really been forced to adopt and learning how to adopt. We had I can Zoom now with my 91-year-old dad and mom. And it's like, I think that kind of change is something that we'll see coming out of it, or we can, have a different sort of toolkit at our disposal. And, that's kind of exciting to see. There's a lot of things I think would still happen, ways that we can stay healthy when gathering in larger groups. The use of data is really important. The use and how to, employ big data and maintain privacy is a conversation we're going to be forced into. You really can't do contact tracing and use big data in the proper way without kind of learning how to do that properly. And a lot of people just are spooked by historically the way big data was used in kind of flushing out things like patterns in human behavior. So, these are things that, on macro end we see, personally, we're looking a lot at things like telehealth and Internet of Things and big data as it applies to marketing and loyalty programs. So we're kind of, I see a lot of businesses are kind of struggling or adopting those sort of things. But to me, the big picture, it's pretty exciting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stan. And Cameron, I have a question for you. You are a scientist and entrepreneur that's after producing electric vehicles in a say historical moment in which large car makers are shifting their production nearly entirely to electric. Could you tell us and our audience where do you derive your belief and conviction that even niche players can find a gap, a space in the industry and create a position for themselves when the large players are putting all their thrust onto the sector?
John Paul, thanks for the question. First of all, during the pandemic, we realized that the drivers gave up driving to get offices to work, and we all chose the remote working tools like Stan mentioned about, like Hangouts or Zoom to make meetings, or Skype Business, and it made us rethink about the manufacturing cars, because people are giving up on their cars, and they're choosing different kind of mobility tools like bicycling or scooters or electric scooters to go from A to B. So in this stage of history, we decided to wait with patience, because in the human nature, we don't keep ourselves in a room for a lifetime and wait to pass the pandemic from the history of the world. And according to your question, I would like to say that large companies, large manufacturers like Ford and Kia or Mitsubishi and others, or European manufacturers, they put a lot of efforts to add electric car versions in their fleet, and it requires to build such products. It requires a lot of investment, billion-dollar level investments we are talking about. But according to science and my experience in lab, it doesn't require that such of investment to make cars electric for the inventions or innovation. And also our difference from large scale manufacturers is, one of them is we don't set up gigafactories to produce cars. We aim to build micro factories to produce about 1,000 cars in a year in different cities in different continents. And also our difference from other electric car manufacturers, we don't cause the car owners cost a lot to take care of the cars or some other things like insurance policies, like periodic maintenance and other things. Our buyers will be able to monetize data in different kind of for different kind of products that they need. This is what we aim and what we do different from the other manufacturers.
Thank you, Cameron. And Patrice, what is going on in your segment, and what challenges and opportunities do you see there? And maybe you could share some cases on how you disrupt in your industry now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, thank you very much for this question, Nadya. This event. I'm particularly fascinated about Cihan's business model, because it seems like we have a lot in common here, and entertainment, and we're more complementary than competing, actually. So I'm very excited about that. Before we go further, because I've had that earlier today in a call, there is, and its purpose left here, there is a butterfly above my head. Somebody complained that I killed that butterfly earlier on, and I was a bad guy to have that butterfly on the wall. Now, I want to make sure that you understand why this butterfly is here, and it's totally connected to what we're saying. This butterfly is actually a gift that was given to me about 20 years ago when I was in Guyana. It was another part of my life. As you know, Guyana was very closely linked to Papillon, you know, the story, the book, the movie, which was about freedom. And where I'm getting to is the reason why I kept this here, because I hesitated taking it off because I hate killing animals, obviously, is because this is a symbol of transformation. That's what a butterfly is. And if you look at Cardano, for example, if you're into blockchain technology, that's their symbol. IOHK is a butterfly. It's Cardano. It's the type of butterfly. On the other side is a Mayan calendar. So basically transformations happen through time. And I'd like to go back in a way to what Stan was saying, is essentially what we are experiencing right now is just another step of adoption of technology, another transformation. A little bit like this butterfly, we're coming in different state of things. In terms of entertainment, from my perspective, I think Cihan has more a perspective on the distribution and the circulation of things. I'm more on the finance and the production of things. But a lot of people said, oh my God, you're dead in the water a couple of weeks ago because it's all finished. You know, cinema is over, cinema is dead. How many times have we heard cinema is dead? The truth is, I don't think so. I've never had as many people calling me for consultancy. I've never had as many opportunities, actually. in the entertainment sector. For sure, the supply chain was broken, but what does it mean? Well, it means now we're into a seller's market. Essentially, there's no production. I mean, Russia, you know, I know I sent you an article, Nadya, earlier, but Russia is one of the first countries that resumed production, film production. And there is a demand, a huge demand right now for fresh content. And people have been stuck with catalog sort of entertainment. Now they want something fresh. So now the teams are ready to start again. And we're into a seller's market. There's a lot of opportunities out there in terms of production. There's a lot of opportunities in terms of pivoting towards a different type of audience that will, I think, both embrace first online, like streaming definitely is the way forward. I mean, streaming, tell me if I'm wrong, Jihan, but I think between February and March alone, or April, content streaming, audiovisual content was boosted by 40%, video game 80%. So if that's not an opportunity in the market, what is, you know? I mean, I'm gonna pass Zoom because they are probably listening to us. Well done, Zoom, you know, 100% in 2 months. I hope you were on that stock, whoever it was. But that's the reality of the market. So opportunity is the name of the game because it is a pivot, as you said, Nadya. Certain things are changing. I don't think offline is dead. I think offline will still be part of the offer later down the line, not in the short term, but we're going to come into a game where online definitely drives offline. So we're sort of maybe tilting and reversing the roles here, but there's still two complementary markets. And I'll give you one quick example, very, very specific. So we did tokenize a film last year. It was the first film tokenized successfully, compliant with the regulation, etc. Now we've been approached by a fund, 30 million US fund for entertainment, that want to tokenize part of their IP. At the beginning, that was pre-COVID-19 era, so that was at the end of last year. They wanted almost exclusively theatrical cinema release type content. Now we've come to a point where the slate of projects that they have is 1/3 what we call TV series, which is really streaming series, 1/3 video games, and 1/3 live including theater, but also immersive content. Like we have a content that's XR, really, it's VR. It can be replicated at home as well and streamed. So this is where we're going, actually. And I think that's very, very exciting. There's a lot of opportunities out there, definitely for media.
Thank you. And Jihan, would you like to comment as well on the complementarity?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And Patrice, you've made great points. The way we've seen it is like Patrice has said, a lot of people are switching to digital, and studios right now are trying to do this PVOD, $20 for theatrical release in the home. It looks like it's not a model they can sustain. It can't replicate or replace the kind of revenue that exhibition per person ticketing creates. So there is clearly a window for PVOD, which is after theatrical, but for the theatrical window that's riddled with limitations and bottlenecks like seating capacity, screening limitations, hours of operation. These need to expand. These bottlenecks need to be removed. And the experience of buying a ticket per person and watching something brand new while it's relevant in social media in the world has to be there. So that's what we've built with our venue product, understanding where things are going, understanding what consumers want. We created like a YouTube where the content creators can't control everything, but they set the ticket price and they release the content according to, geographic location down to zip code granularity, and they're able to expand their audience and maintain that per person ticketing. So this, we believe, has changed the landscape. And now with our developments, we're getting ready to launch by the end of this year. We're now talking to a lot of the content creators domestically and internationally and they seem to understand how this can expand their audience and get them granular data on who's actually watching the content rather than just a guesstimation. So I totally agree with Patrice. He's right on. Everything is going digital, but the one thing that we think is for sure is that the exhibition business will not go away. It is something that one, you can't replicate in the home, and two, no other business model can replicate the revenue that these studios generate from per person ticketing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jihan. And Joran, what are your thoughts about the current situation? Do you think that there are more opportunities for any of the human behavioral changes which you could come across in your segment?
Well, we're also in the event sector, and of course, the way we provide technology is by allowing people to actually pick seats when they go to actual events, although there is also a possibility to use our system when you produce virtual events where location of view has an impact. So that is still relevant. What we see is that there are behavioral changes of people because of the coronavirus crisis. But if you look at the historical examples of this, there is a possibility that these changes will be fairly short-lived. When you look at what happened in the Spanish flu, when you look at what happened at the other influenzas, is that once the virus passed, people went back to normal behavior. So I think in terms of digitalization, that will remain required because it has a number of benefits. I think in terms of social distancing and physical distancing, I think it will disappear, the changes, because people really don't like it. They want to be close to each other. It's a very human need to be close to other people and to touch other people, or to be physically close to them. We are a social species. We're not rational, self-interested agents. We are social agents. And so I think that after a transition period of about a year, we will see people go back in terms of social distancing, to as much as normal behavior as before. That being said, today, the concept of social distancing will become, I think, a key differentiator in the event sector. And one of the things that we are looking at is to provide functionality that allows people to manage social distancing and to make sure that, social distancing is actually respected. There are really three players here that require social distancing, which is the people who organize the events. They need to make sure that they have a clear view on how many people they can have at events. Then you have authorities who need to make sure that they know that the rules are being applied with. But most importantly, it's the people who are interested in going to events. They need to know that there are rules that effectively apply and also protect them. And I think, in the technology sector, we have to make sure that that all of this is visible and transparent, because not only are we a social species, we're also a species that wants to make sure that we know what's going on, in the sense of, can we trust each other, right? And trust is that fundamental human capacity that you need in order to make anything work. And I think that, so it's a long answer, but it really pivots around two aspects. I think some of the changes, I think, will be permanent, and certainly around digitalization and the fact that you can actually have meetings, meaningful meetings with people just through conference video calls and other ways, which means that from a cost perspective, I think, people flying across the globe for 2-hour meetings will become less relevant and less justifiable. But I think in terms of actual people meeting, the need for people to come together and to slap each other on the shoulder and have a good joke and meet and see each other, that will remain. And I think after the wave of this virus, we will see people go back to this. This is actually already happening, certainly in Europe, where the virus seems to be beyond its peak. You can see that people really want to go out again and share time and space with each other. And as we go further down, I think the social distancing will reduce.
Thank you, Joran. I think it was not a long answer. I think it was necessary to take the time it took to give these explanations. Very good. Ilaria, you just recently concluded a successful fundraising. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and what obstacles you've encountered in it? You know, what went very smooth? Give us a rundown.
Yeah, so yeah, that's right. We completed a fundraising of one of our portfolio startups. So we raised 2 million during the month of March, April, and we closed the deal at the end of April. And it was quite complicated in the sense that all investors at the beginning paused all new investments at the beginning of the pandemic. So in March and April, you contact the investors and they will say, wait a moment, I need to understand the situation. I need to understand the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the economic of the countries. I need to help the startup or the company that I already have in my portfolio. So I need time. But in the end, if you are able to explain to the investor that the business that you are presenting to them is, is attractive, the industry is attractive, the way that you are dealing with the situation and the prospect, the future action that you want to put in place, then you take somehow the conversation active with the investor. And so what we did, we kept the conversation active till the end of April. And then at that point, investors were understood what was happening. And they were keen on new investments because there are opportunities now. There are new opportunities and investors now are looking for new opportunities given this new scenario. And so it took time, but at the end, all the patience that we put during the fundraising period was compensated. So we were very happy about that. And of course, we use all the technological tools that are available, so Zoom, Hangouts, phone calls, and whatever. What was important probably is the way you reach investors. So the way you reach investors hasn't changed. So you need a warm introduction. You need someone who introduces you to the investor. And that's the best way to, present yourself. So nothing's changed from that point of view. And after 2 months of posts about new investments, now probably, I believe, is the time to look again for investments and new investors.
Well, that's very good to hear, and confirms what I and others have seen as investors. The market has been moving on, and there have been closings even in this month that have been a bit more difficult, but nonetheless have been executed. Noha, question for you. We talked so much about the Belt Road Initiative. Do you see that arena as an area where your technology can play a role and get new customers and clients? Because that's a massive initiative between China, Central Asia and Europe.
Actually, the Belt and the initiative was quite important in China during the past few years, and a lot of state-owned enterprises have invested lots of money in Eastern Europe and also Middle East. Although most of those investments has suffered a lot of loss in terms of the return on the maybe profit or others, but especially the Chinese government would like to expand its influence in the world, and not through maybe the military way, but through the economic way. In terms of my company, we are a blockchain company, and maybe a few of you have noticed that President Xi has mentioned a very important initiative during last October, that blockchain is a national strategy. And so a lot of state enterprises such as Hire or TCL or others, and has spent a lot of resources in this field. Regarding our technology, we are public blockchain company with the technology can supply to those companies, and they have a lot of money and resources and to put into this field. And we'll sign a strategic partnership with Hire in 2 weeks, and we have finalized our contract today. And it would be big news in the market. And also, every government has a lot of budget on buying some public blockchain companies, such as there's a very small city called Changzhi in Shanxi province, which is kind of maybe the 5th tier city in China. It's not very big, but it had put in 500 million RMB into buying 5 public blockchain companies. So that, I think as long as the government has emphasized the importance of blockchain companies, and in my company, we have a very good chance in winning deals and playing a very important role because we have some scientists from the Silicon Valley, and also we understand the Chinese market. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Nadya?
Yeah.
You have a question?
Stan, Ilaria also raised quite a good issue on the changes in the current fundraising, or maybe keeping up with the something we get used to. Do you see any observations in the changes in the investment process or fundraising by itself in the current environment?
Well, it's a challenging time right now from an investor's perspective. We invest alongside a lot of institutions and a lot of family funds, and so it's pretty easy for me to kind of share that perspective. One of the biggest challenges is looking at the go-to-market strategy and looking at adoption. And what's happened in the last 6 months has really shaken everybody's go-to-market strategy, shaken everybody's adoption. And what's a challenge for an investor is, like, we still might have the resources, we still might have the fortitude, we might have the right mindset, but it's hard to sometimes interpret the data to see that these changes are going to hold true for 5 years versus 5 months. And we have to look at that longer term horizon of what's going to happen between month 5 and year 5. That's really going to show the success of that investment. And right now, you do have so many industries which were upended, and some people are innovating and adopting, and some things are coming to market, but it's so early for us to really extrapolate the potential for success to that horizon. I mean, historically, we had patterns of behavior we could use to kind of make that assessment with. And right now we're kind of, we're really having to be very creative and very honest with ourselves in terms of what really institutes a good investment. And it does come back typically to some of the fundamentals about how well the companies understand their customers, how intimate they are to the needs and that relationship between the business and the consumer. And really if you've got somebody who's very intimate into the demands of their customer, that's going to hold true for that horizon. They're pivoting, and they know what their customer needs often before the customer knows what they need. Those are the businesses that are really a lot easier to invest in because you kind of walk into it with that confidence. But it's not as easy as it was a few months ago because the data is just really very hard to interpret. So a lot of people say that investors are still bullish and still investing. They are, but not really. I mean, they want to invest, but the decision making that investors go through has changed, and we're still in that process of adapting to it and to understanding, what we can bring to the table to make sure that where investments are made, they're successful in that, in that targeted horizon.
Stan, yeah, I agree on what you're saying, but I would like to make it just a tiny distinction. I think in the US now, there's a lot of equity, but there's a lack of debt. Whereas, for example, in Europe and in Asia, we got a lot of debt available. And I think this is a little bit what is slowing down on top of everything else, the American economy. The fact that, there will be, plenty of VC firms that are awash with capital, equity capital, but again, there's no support on the debt side because obviously everybody at lenders' desks are scaling down, and discounting assets and evaluations. And with this in mind, Cameron, you are a startup entrepreneur, and you sit in an important country which is third to the US and to Europe, and you have access to both, and you work with both, but you could also access Asia as a source of capital. What would be your options at the moment in the light of what I was just describing and being the situation in the capital markets to raise capital, obviously?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, by the way. Turkey is a very important country in the world geopolitically and geolocation, and it makes us to access in GCC, Europe, Asia, Africa, Russia, just a little bit far from maybe North America. And there is a high attraction of Turkey to those continents and the important countries like China, Japan, Russia, and the other European countries. In our position of entrepreneurs reside in Turkey, we face some struggles because of the country's attraction from outside of perspective of other countries. It's not easy for an entrepreneur who resides in Turkey to raise funds from national resources or international resources, and also we are trying to build a good image as Turkish entrepreneurs to foreign VCs, angel investor networks, or private equities. That there's an attraction in Turkey, and we can accomplish impossible missions to make things easier for the humanity. And recently we saw a few news in entrepreneurship and startup ecosystem that we had a unicorn recently raised in Turkey that has been sold to Zynga, which is the biggest gaming company in the world. And we proved that as Turkish entrepreneurs, we can create attraction and we can solve the problems of humanity. And that's a proof of concept, but it doesn't mean that it made things easier. We have to keep working very hard, and we have to prove that we have the quality of international level, and with providing some evidences with quality products, there is an opportunity in Turkey and to attract investors to come to invest in Turkish marketplace.
Thank you. And Pat, what are your observations in terms of fundraising? Do you have any difficulties, or what would be your strategy in the current environment?
Okay, there are two aspects actually to fundraising in our case. I mean, one, there is the aspect of content, because that's what we're doing. We're financing content. The other one is tech. And those are two different types of investors and almost two different types of markets. You can't sell content to tech investors and vice versa. You can't sell tech to entertainment investors either. So what we've seen so far is, well, first of all, I think there's been a huge push. I will go back to what Noah was saying. Noah.
Yes.
There's a problem on his line, I think.
Yeah. But you're now, muted.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to go back to what Noah was saying, in a sense that China and most of Asia actually are running a very bullish blockchain agenda, and I think you'd know it at La Token already. So it's very encouraging. On the other end, and we're not going to lie, and definitely I think Stan touched upon this, and investors are in sort of standby mode most of the times, because they're looking at an interesting opportunity. On the one hand, they want to diversify, and they think media, particularly recently, has been very promising. On the other end, they obviously don't want to take any risks, So we're in sort of limbos at the moment where we're trying to get people to the side. Some people are quite eager because they realize that staying in cash is not an option. If you stay in cash, I think past October, you're dead. There's probably going to be a lot of hyperinflation. Don't take it as personal financial advice, but I worked in a bank for 8 years in risk management, and my feeling is that hyperinflation is going to hit in October. If you're in cash, maybe not a good idea. So what we're trying to do is, we're not saying it this way to investors. Obviously, we don't want to close the doors, but what we're saying is, I think it might be a good time actually to diversify. The cost of capital has never been as high actually for startups. That's one negative for us. I mean, I'm sure Ilaria would agree that the equity you give for the funds you raise has never been as high as now, right? So that's good for investors, I would say. I would argue. The other thing, and the two other things, I'll finish on this very quickly, that struck me is the diversity. Diversity in terms of, on the content side, not on the technological side this time, on the content side, we've had a lot of interest from people ranging from the Middle East, Europe, Asia, US, and that's actually quite interesting in itself, because it shows, and there are certain hubs that are forming. Singapore is one of them, Hong Kong is one of them, Switzerland is another one, and you have a desire for more transparency. So where Cayman, for example, used to be a go-to area, now we start seeing people were fleeing Caymans to go to Singapore or Hong Kong potentially by August or September this year. That's another thing that happened. And you see people were more eager for impact as well. A different type of investor. Again, I'm talking about content here. They want ESG, high impact, environmental impact. They are interested about how the productions are made. Are they made in a green way? Are they distributed in an ecological, environmentally friendly way? Patients are taken into account. They were not necessarily, we didn't care before, to put it this way, which was bad, So that's where I would stop it. It's diversity and what I would call ESG. I hate that term because it's like an acronym and it loses all its meaning, but it's say more conscious investments, perhaps.
Thank you. And thank you all. We are now gathered the participants from all over the world, actually. So we have the participants from Asia, Europe, US on our today's panel and actually covered most of the questions. And we have the final 5 minutes to go for all of us. So please finalize the key word or maybe the key message for our audiences, which are serial entrepreneurs and VC investors. What should be in the focus of attention to sustain and succeed in the current environment? So what should be in the key focus area for all? So Gianpaolo, would you start?
You let me go first. All right. I would say true, well-intended impact investing. That's what I think it's name of the game today, because of course every venture, every business has to have a real purpose. But I think now more than ever, real impact investing where it's needed can make a difference and can catalyze the interest of investors and create a drag effect and vacuum effect and raise a lot of capital. So go for impact investing and look for ventures that have those qualities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianpaolo. And Ilaria?
I would say that today and for the following months, I think safety and trust are two key words. So give the level of safety and trust that customer wants. I believe that's it.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. And Joran?
I will agree on the trust point, but I think there is another more structural point to be made, which is that I think I'm an entrepreneur. I've set up a number of businesses and startups, and I've also been investing. I think one of the key points is that the power balance between investors and entrepreneurs needs to be addressed, because I think at the moment it's skewed, and I think we need to look, when you create something, you need to make a product or service that people want. You need to build a team. You need to create value. And these are the key points that you need to do. And I think we need to readdress at a more structural level in society the interests of investors and entrepreneurs, away from investors towards entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Joran. And Stan, what is your keyword to go?
I think from an entrepreneur standpoint is demonstrate your capacity to understand your customer and be obsessive with it. From an investor standpoint, it's opportunity. Now is a great time to look at potentials for investment in the market, funding those businesses that really have their customers dialed in, and it's a great time to be investing. I think when we look 5 years out, I think we can be confident that we're going to be in a better place.
Thank you, Stan. And Jihan, what's your keyword?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. My keyword would be confidence. Know your nobody knows your product and the problem you're solving better than you. So make sure you're confident in your approach. Don't abandon your plans. Yes, there's a pandemic, and yes, there's a lot of chaos in the world. These will pass. You don't want to totally pivot and change your plans only to find out that things have changed and you're back to square one. Be confident in your plans, be confident in your solutions and your product, and don't abandon your plans, but you have to be able to be fluid and change with the times and make small pivots. Understand your audience. We've personally, like our company, raised more funds this last 3 months than all of 2019. It's because we didn't abandon our plans, and we were able to articulate our solution and tell a story. Everybody you talk to is a customer. Everybody you talk to is your customer, no matter if they're an investor or if they're just your neighbors. Be able to articulate your story and tell a story. People don't like pitches, they like stories. And that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you. And Cameron, your keyword?
My keyword would be commitment to the idea. I agree with Jihan because the difference of entrepreneur is that a person who attaches to his or her ideas and makes them come true to life. Therefore, we have to be committed to our mission to make them real, no matter what conditions exist in the world now. They will go all pass, like Joran mentioned before, like influenza, Spanish influenza, and others. And also, I would like to mention trust between all stakeholders during the investment or product release cycles. We have to trust each other with confidence and prove that we are honest on trades, what we are providing and what clients are buying.
Thank you. And Bet?
Well, I'm going to go back to that butterfly here, that morpho. Transformation, adaptability, agility, be like water, my friend. As Bruce Lee once said, I think you can have your confidence, definitely. I think, I agree. That's the one I was going to say. I was going to say think positive. I think I fully agree with Jihan. In fact, I think I agree with every keyword that I've heard right now. But you do have to be able to observe how the markets are changing. You have to be aware of the opportunities, keep your production chain able to change if you need a pivot. And I think that's adaptability, essentially a transformation, if you wish. But I mean, I loved every single keyword. I've actually taken note of every single one of them. I'm going to recite them tonight before I go to bed. So thanks very much for all the insights.
Yeah, you will have highlights and recording of this session, so you can look at it afterwards as well. Noah, what's your keyword?
Yeah, my keyword will be location, location, location in China, in China, in China. And so China is the safest place in the world right now. We have recovered our normal life, and we can fly, we can go to cinema, we can have dinner or lunch with our friends, and we don't have to wear face mask. And even there's only one case appearing in this country, and the government would pay a lot of attention in that area. And I'm in Hangzhou, and starting from mid-February, we have been back to normal. And you can find nothing different in this country and then maybe last year. So if you would love to maybe do something in the maybe during the COVID-19 period, and maybe you can come to China and find your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So I invite you to join different formats which we have, such as roadshows, panel discussions, masterclasses, and keynotes. And tomorrow we will have a keynote on how great ideas fail because bad execution, which is also very actual right now. And we'll have an online roadshow, investments and pivots during pandemic on fintech and blockchain. So I invite you to join our Startup Leader Club sessions next week as well, and tomorrow. So all the best and wish you good luck.